What's up everyone, I'm Danny and welcome to another Harry Potter design lesson. We already did fantastic fonts and where to find them for lesson number 1. For lesson number 2, we did the secrets of the darkest clip art. This lesson, we're doing the Department of Magical Layout and Design. And this is going to be a little bit of a more difficult thing to show you in just one video. I'm going to kind of sum it up as best as I can, but when it comes to layout, yes, you can follow some rules, but if you really want to do it well, you really just got to have an eye for it or practice a lot, look at a lot of inspiration, and it's like it's artwork, so it's something you're just going to have an eye for or develop an eye for. I'm posting these videos for free on my YouTube channel as like a short version of the full lesson. If you want the full lesson, they're over on Patreon, so those are exclusive for patrons. So yeah, if you want all the details and the longer video, head on over to Patreon and just check us out over there. There's also a lot of downloads and things you can get that are exclusive to patrons over on Patreon. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into this design lesson. So here we are. If you've been watching the past couple of design lessons, you know that I'm working on recreating this quibbler and kind of using this as a way to show you guys how to do these types of designs. So if I hide this top layer right here, which is the actual quibbler, you can see here is my recreation so far. We've gone over fonts. As you can see, we've gone over clip art and borders and stuff. So that's what we have so far. But today is going to be a little bit different because we're going over layout and design. And it's pretty straightforward, honestly. Like if you look at any magazine, you're going to see a headline, or not a headline, the magazine logo title at the very top right here standing out. You're going to find some type of image that draws you in to look at it right here. And then you've got this text along the sides over here, and usually at the bottom too down here, which are articles you might find in the magazine. So even though these aren't articles on this cover, the text is in the place where the article titles would be. So if you just open your browser, go to Google Images and just search for magazine cover design, you will find they all follow those same rules, basically. You look at it, you know it's a magazine cover. And they don't look very magical, obviously. So the difference here is Mina Lima has taken those rules, basically, of a magazine cover, and then they've mixed in the different things that I've shown you for the past couple of videos. The fonts are the fonts that, these vintage fonts that I've shown you where to find them and all that stuff. And the artwork that they use is this really strange vintage clip art instead of being like photographs. When you're doing Harry Potter designs or magical designs, you don't want those photographs really. You don't want that sleek look. You want something that looks a little vintage and gritty and strange. So let's first of all go ahead and put this, I'm going to grab that color over there for the title or the logo, and we're going to go ahead and put the Quibbler logo in here. So Quibbler, but there we go. So we have the Quibbler logo there, and now that's in there. And you may be wondering where the heck I got this Quibbler logo font. I actually created this Quibbler logo font, so it is a design asset that is available for download over on Patreon. But let's talk more about actual layout and design. Without getting too technical and boring, I'm going to explain a few things. So right here, this guy, this is what's called the focal point of the art piece, because it is a piece of art. So we've got this as the focal point. Now if we go back to our Google image search, this person, it's usually a person doing something, or if it's a food magazine, it's food, it is what you very first look at when you see the magazine on the shelf. That is the focal point. So when you look at one of these covers on the shelf, you see first and foremost, Iron Man. And Iron Man 3 right here in bold red font. So you know that there is an article, a prominent article about Iron Man in this magazine, and you also see the Empire logo right here. It has 3 focal points. You can have multiple focal points, but you usually don't want to do more than just a few, because then all the focal points get lost. I'd say find one good focal point and maybe 1 or 2 smaller, less prominent focal points. So right here we've got Tony Stark, we've got Iron Man 3, and we've got Empire right there in the back. And then, the other titles are smaller. So your eyes do go there, but later. First thing, most prominent, Tony Stark. That's where your eyes go. That's a focal point. I'm going to stop talking about focal points now. Now we're going to be talking about typography. So again, if we look at this magazine cover, you see that it's all very clean and organized and like I said before, very sleek and modern. When it comes to Harry Potter design, magical design work like that of what Mina Lima did for the films, it is just off. It's scattered. It's not quite perfect. There are things that look good. So this looks good, but it's not sleek and it's not modern. And that's what we're going for. You don't want to make a modern looking Harry Potter design if you want it to look authentic. The fonts that you choose and the way you place them, that is called typography. Mina Lima does a lot of cool stuff with typography, as you can see. This is very interesting typography. It's kind of like this zigzag path up the page, where this would be normally on a magazine where the article names would be. And then over here, you can see it's very straight and, very organized. Anyway, you can go over to your to Google Images again and just search for typography. And this can give you some really cool inspiration. If you just look at all this stuff, there's these like word cloud things. I don't really like them. They're overused. But yeah, you can find some really cool looking stuff. Normally, I would search for vintage and then whatever it is, because Mina Lima used a lot of vintage artwork and fonts and stuff. So vintage typography. So if we search for that, you see we get these types of things. They all look like that sort of slanted font with these kind of curly things around it and a border. Don't use that. It's an overused style, obviously. We look that up and that's all we see. That's like pretty much everything you see when you search for it. So don't use it. It's overused and it doesn't look like anything that would be in Harry Potter to me. And if you go to vintage and you search for page layout, vintage page layout, we get a lot of this stuff. Scrapbook looking things. Don't try to emulate a scrapbook either. This doesn't look like anything that would be in Harry Potter at all. It doesn't look like anything that would be in a Quibbler or part of a Quibbler. So yeah, just scrapbooking really doesn't work with this type of design. I mean, it's cool to do scrapbooking if you're just doing it for fun, just to have a scrapbook. But if you're trying to make a design that looks like something that came out of the Harry Potter films, it's not going to be a scrapbook page. So instead, for inspiration, I would search for vintage newspaper. And now we get this. And you can see there's a lot of cool looking designs in here. If we go down here, this is sort of like a classifieds, and it does look like, maybe the Quibbler classifieds page or something from the Daily Prophet. So this is where I would get my inspiration for laying out the pages and like ads, like I said, like a classifieds page. Another thing you can search for inspiration is vintage magazine pages. So you can get a lot of cool inspiration from looking at this. But there is a very important element that you need to put into your design work. Otherwise, it's just going to look like everything else. I don't know how else to put it. So you need to put something unique, something interesting. At least one thing needs to look interesting. Mina Lima did that by using this really strange clip art here, but also the way the words zigzag up the page is a very interesting thing to do. You wouldn't normally see that on a magazine, and they did it, and it looks interesting and strange, and that is something that you need in your wizarding world type designs. Every page, every design has to have some interesting element to it that makes it look just weird. So yeah, I guess the main rule is just make it weird. This is weird. You can't deny that this is weird. So yeah, the main rule to page layout for the wizarding world for Harry Potter is make it weird. And I'm going to create an interior page for this. And I'm going to do it from scratch just so you guys can see how I lay out the page. So we're going to go File, and we're going to create a new file, and it's going to be 8.5 by 11 or A4, whatever size you want. We can easily change the size later if you want to. So I'm just going to do 8.5 by 11. I'm going to create it, and then I'm going to drag in some guides over here about a 1/4 inch or so in. And that's going to be where I cut probably. So anything outside of these lines right here is going to get cut off. So yeah, you don't want to put anything out there. And then I'm going to do a couple more rules about a 1/4 inch further in, and that's going to be where my page border is. So there we go. Now, to create the page border, you can either use clip art that you've downloaded, or you can just create the border yourself. I'm going to show you how to create the border yourself just because I've already gone over clip art. So first we need a reference image. So I'm going to go into my images, and I'm just going to grab this image right here and pull it into Photoshop. And there we go. So here is our reference image. You can see that the border is kind of, it's not perfect. It's kind of rough. It looks like it might have been drawn on by hand. And you can see that there's one thick part of the border and then a thinner line in there. So if we go back to ours, our thick border is going to be along these guidelines that we just pulled in. And then we need a thinner border too. So I'm going to do about 1/8 of an inch in from that. And that's going to be for our thinner border. And now we're ready to go. So grab your brush tool, and then from here we're going to go down here, and we're going to go and find dry media brushes and use this ultimate pencil brush right here. But you want to take the flow and just put it up to 100% right there. You can kind of adjust the size of your brush. Find one that's kind of similar to that size compared to the page, and make sure that view and snap is on, and snap to guides is also checked. We also want to create a new layer over here. We don't want to draw this on the background. It needs to be a new layer, and we're going to say border. And then adjust the size of your brush until it looks about right. Click right there, draw a little dot. Scroll down to the next point, hold shift and click, and then as you can see, it drew like a full straight line between the two because we held shift to click. However, that is way too thick, so delete that and try again with a smaller brush. Here we go, shift and click. That looks a little better. And then we're going to shift and click over here. Scroll up and shift and click here, and then finally go back to that first point, shift and click. We can hide the guides, and you can see now we have one border, and it does look drawn on or kind of rough, similar to this. But it looks like the smaller lines are a bit closer than what my guides have, so I'm going to pull my guides in a little bit. So here we go. We've still got a little bit of more setup on this page before we're ready to design it. So yeah, as you can see, there is a bit of a margin all the way around inside the borders here. So we're going to create that. That's probably about a 1/4 inch margin. So here's how I like to do it. I will grab my rectangle tool and click somewhere in the document, which will bring up this create rectangle dialog box, and we're going to do 0.25 inches by 0.25 inches. And that is a 1/4 inch. Click OK, and now we have this 1/4 inch rectangle. And if I drag it over here, as you can see, it is snapping to the guides that we created. I'm going to create a guide right here, and then we're going to create a guide here, and just all the way around. That way we know we have about a 1/4 inch margin around our content. So all of our page content will be going inside this. Next, if we go over to this reference image, you'll see that it is 3 columns. So we want 3 columns for Quibbler pages, and they have about a 1/4 inch of padding between them as well. So we want to recreate that for our layout. So we're going to take this 1/4 inch square, put it over here, and we're going to do a couple of temporary guides. So there's 1 and then 2 more 1/4 inch guides over here, and that will help us account for the 1/4 inch padding between our 3 columns. Now we want to make the 3 columns. So grab your rectangular marquee tool and select everything right here. Pass those 2 guides all the way to here. So this is what we want. Control-Shift-C to copy merged, or you can do Edit, Copy Merged, and then Control-N to make a new document. But we're not actually going to make a new document. We just want a number here, the width. So take that, change it to inches. So 6.35 inches. That's what we just copied, 6.35 inches. Copy that number and close that dialog box, and then open up your calculator. And with your calculator, you want 6.35 inches divided by 3. That's 2.116666. So we'll just do 2.116. Close this. Again, get your rectangular tool, click in your document, and you want 2.116 inches. Click OK, and that's for the width. So now you know that your columns should be this wide. Now go ahead and move your little square over here, but delete those 2 temporary guides that we made. We're going to put this square right up here and create a guide on this side of it. Then we want our little 1/4 inch square in between. That gives us our padding. We're going to move this bigger square over and make another guide. So as you can see, we're just doing that all the way across the page and making the guides, and we're done. So now hide those 2 rectangles, and you have your layout, your 3-column layout right there. So as you can see, it's starting to come together. It didn't take me too long. It would have if I had to write that article and everything. But luckily I had somebody so generously donate an article for me to use in this readable Quibbler. And that's basically how my design process goes. I just start filling things in, rearranging things where I need to, and the page kind of flows together in that way. You might want to plan it all out ahead of time, but I usually just jump in and start designing, and it just becomes a design. That is it for the free version of this video, guys. If you want the full design lesson, head on over to Patreon. Go ahead and check out the first couple of design lessons that I did. And if you like this type of stuff, subscribe to my channel for more design lessons. I haven't come up with a name for the next design lesson, but it's definitely going to be how to digitally age your designs and how to texture them. And that's something that people have been requesting for a long time. So that's coming in the next design lesson 4. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.